the value of the BRIC is not determined with reference to any other currency. It's determined with reference to gold by weight of gold. Now, I don't know the weight, they'll pick one, but again, it doesn't matter because it's not even it's math, it's logic. And by the way, now we're back to Aristotle's transitive law. This is the key. This unlocks the whole thing because Aristotle said, if A equals B equals C, then A equals C. The B can drop out. It's not even arithmetic. It's logic. So what the BRICS have done is they have dodged the biggest bullet, the thing that caused Bretton Woods ultimately to fail, the thing that potentially stands in the way of all this. They've defined their currency by weight of gold. Now, a weight of gold has a dollar value. So A equals B equals C. One BRIC is could be an ounce or a kilo, it doesn't matter. Call it an ounce. One BRIC equals 1 ounce of gold equals today 1970. Well, through the transitive law, drop out the B, and one BRIC equals 1970, $1,970. But that's constant. I mean, that logic works for a moment in time, but it's not fixed because the price of gold is going to fluctuate daily or minute by minute, right? So what's going to happen is the dollar gold, call it exchange rate, the dollar price of gold. So the LBMA, the COMEX, the London Metals Exchange, JP Morgan, unallocated forward contracts, the whole huge gold market in dollars is still going to exist. In fact, the BRICS want it to exist. And if I could just digress for 1 minute, Steph, I've never seen an international monetary economic problem with that has created more confusion. I won't say misinformation, that's a little trite, but just confusion or maybe deliberate hyperbole than this one. Because let me tell you what this is not. I'm going to tell you what it is, but it's important to know what it's not. This is not the petro yuan. This is not the petro ruble. This is not a gold-backed yuan. This is not a gold standard. This is not the end of the US dollar. It's not the end of the euro. It's not the end of the world. It's not any of those things. But that's what everyone's running around on websites or whatever shouting about. It's none of those things. In fact, quite the opposite. And this is where the Russian mentality comes in. The BRICS want the dollar. They want the dollar gold market to exist because they get the free ride. The dollar has to do all the dirty work in the gold space, and BRICS get the free ride. By declaring one BRIC equal weight, again, weight's the key, they just let the dollar gold market go wherever it goes, and the BRIC is worth an ounce or whatever, kilo, whatever. And the dollar equivalent under the transitive law changes, but they're not pegged there. They're not fighting that fight. So this, I analogize this, it's like you're in your house, in the backyard, your landscaper is like digging trenches and putting in plants and sweating and doing all this work, and you're sitting there with a glass of iced tea enjoying the view. In other words, the BRICS get to free ride on the dollar gold system, and they want that system. They don't want it to because they get the benefit of a gold value. Now think of what the BRICS don't have to do in this scenario. They don't have to buy gold. They don't even have to own gold. They do, but no one in the world has enough to back a currency. This currency, the BRIC, will not be redeemable into gold. Now, maybe there's a dealer somewhere who will take it. That's between you and the dealer. But it's not like you're going to be able to march down to the People's Bank of China with a pile of bricks and say, give me the gold. They're not going to do it. So it's not redeemable. They're not going to make a market. They're not going to maintain a value because they don't have to because it's by weight. They just get to sit back and piggyback on the dollar gold system and let the dollar do all the dirty work with one twist. And here's the Russian contribution. So you don't have to close your capital account. You can close it, open it, whatever. You don't have to buy gold. You don't have to make a market. You don't need that much gold. You just say, this is the ultimate fiat currency. The word fiat in Latin means I say so. They say so, and there it is. They put the United States, basically, Steph, this is a bet. This is a bet that the dollar is going to collapse against gold over time. I think that's a very good bet. This is not a 3-month forecast. I'm not saying gold is going to go up or down the next week. Who knows? But over time, now we're into what? Debt to GDP ratios, kind of stuff you look at all the time. Debt to GDP ratios, annual deficits, dare I say, modern monetary theory, or friend Stephanie Kelton. I mean, all these ideas are ruining the dollar, and everyone can see it, but not yet. And so if you want to launch this new currency and you say, hey, long term, the dollar is going to collapse in terms of gold, I'll hook my horse to this wagon called gold by weight, and I'll just reap the benefits. and I don't have to do a thing. Exactly. They're trading within their own block. Who knows if others join? Probably will, but they don't have to. You need a big enough block. There is a critical mass, but I would say at this point, upwards of 30 to 40 countries, all the other things I mentioned, that's a big enough block. You're defining it by weight. So the market goes where the dollar gold market goes where it goes, but you don't really have to worry about it because you're anchored to weight. But here's the twist I like. So let's say, and this is how it's going to play out. Now you're the United States. You're like, looks like I've been painted into a corner. What can I do? Well, one of the things you could do, I've told the Treasury this for years, they don't listen. I mean, they invite me in, but they don't listen. One of the things you could do is buy gold. But what happens when the United States buys gold? The dollar price of gold goes up, and the BRIC gets stronger, and the dollar gets weaker. Checkmate. In other words, the U.S. is now in a box where you can't even get out of it by buying gold, because you're going to weaken your own currency relative to gold in the process, and the BRICS are just going to sit there and not lift a finger. So it's genius. I got to credit the Russians. I'm not saying the Chinese couldn't think of something like this, but this has got Russia's fingerprints all over it. People have been talking about this for 20 years. The Great Reset, the end of the dollar, the collapse of the dollar, gold to the moon, etc. And it's never played out. And the reason are some of the ones we mentioned, which is the dollar has these huge embedded advantages in its reserve currency status, not because everyone loves the dollar or they even love the United States, but because we have the only bond market big enough to absorb global savings. The U.S. Treasury market is huge. It is liquid, but it's got a whole infrastructure. Primary dealers that bid at auction, when issued trading, settlement, clearance, futures hedging, options hedging, depository trust corporation, settlement, on and on and on. It's got this huge infrastructure of laws, rules, and regulations that they've been building for a long time. I would say 37 years since Alexander Hamilton. But above all, it has the rule of law that people just trust it.